All right, it says east, west, north, south. Right, Jake, I'm from the north side. I'm from the south side. Out west, that's how they speak in Chicago. Up north, all that is part of the Willie Lynch doctrine. I'm from Chicago, the Midwest. I'm from New York. I'm from Cali, Los Angeles, Sin City. All those differences, those are forms of division that this cracker pushed upon the people. This Edomite pushed upon the people. It says, have fine hair, coarse hair, or is tall or short. Now that you have a list of differences, I shall give you an outline of action. But before that, I shall assure you that distrust is stronger than trust, and envy is stronger than adulteration. Respect or admiration. Right, man. 48 laws of power. And I'm not going to go into that right now. The black slave, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slaves and the dark-skinned slaves. You must also have your white servants and overseers distrust all blacks. But it is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, and trust only us. That's why they can never handle a matter within themselves. They too busy at war with each other, but they run to the cracker, especially the black woman, for child support or get him involved in business that don't concern him. The scriptures say the saints shall judge the world. Are you not able to judge the smallest matter? We're supposed to be judging our own people. These nations, these heathens are not supposed to be rulers over us. That's the Bible. This is Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 15. Note 14. And when thou art come unto the land which the Lord Yahweh thy God giveth thee, and shall possess it, and shall dwell therein, and shall say, I will set a king over me, like as all the nations that are about me. Thou shalt in any wise set him king over thee, whom the Lord Yahweh thy God shall choose. One from among thy brethren shalt thou set king over thee. Thou mayest not set a stranger over thee, which is not thy brother. So these nations are not supposed to be ruling over us. They are heathen. They take after they worship heathen customs, which is against the Bible. The scriptures say, as the manner of the ruler of the city is, so are the people. So the wickedness that he pushed, these heathens push out, eventually Jake, being a lost sheep, gonna worship the same idols and images, and then they gonna pass laws. It's scriptural. There's biblical history information that they pass laws to try to make us to worship their idols and bow to their demons and shit like that, man. Democracy. If you come up against anybody that's taking part of this democracy, the LGBT. If you come up against anybody that's doing witchcraft. If you come up against anybody that's speaking that the woman is not over the man and that these women need to fall in line and stop being hoes, this devil will persecute you. That's why they're not supposed to be over us. All right, it says, page 9, gentlemen, these kits are your keys to control. Use them. Have your wives and your children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If used intensely for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful. Thank you, gentlemen. And then there's more, but you brothers have to get into that on your own time. The Willie Lynch book, you should get accustomed to reading a whole lot. The Willie Lynch book is only 27 pages long. Instead of spending money on a woman, instead of spending money on a drink, instead of spending money on going to some club or going out to eat or doing whatever you spend your money on all the time, buy you these books to help you teach the gospel. Your reward in heaven, like the scriptures say, is going to be 100-fold. Peter already asked, and the Lord told him what we was going to get. Let me get the Bible. Let me get the precept. This is Matthew chapter 19, verse 27. Then answered Peter and said unto him, behold, we have forsaken all and followed thee. Right, we forsook everything, man. We gave up clubbing. I got relatives that every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they partying. They don't go out and party, but they used to go out and party at these clubs and whatnot. Now they in the house partying. They celebrate their anniversaries. They celebrate their birthdays. They celebrate all these man traditions. We just had Valentine's Day just come up. Valentine's Day is a tradition of man recently created against the Bible. Verse 28. And Yahushua, slack it. I'm reading it again. Matthew chapter 19, verse 27. Then answered Peter and said unto him, behold, we have forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have thereof, therefore? And Yahushua said unto them, verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, the reincarnation, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, when he comes back, takes over this world, and the kingdom of heaven is established, because we know that that's the second coming, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones. It's going to be rulers in the kingdom of heaven, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. See, you're gonna have that rank in the kingdom of heaven. That 144,000 is gonna be over the rest of the nation, man. The rest of the nation rest of the nation, a percentage of that is gonna be your kids. This is a forever thing. We're gonna have as many wives as we want to forever, and you gonna inhabit planets. Your kids are gonna be piled up in planets, and they're gonna have kids that's gonna rule over planets. You gonna have nations. Nation ain't even a word. We're gonna figure out how the Lord gonna do it in the kingdom of heaven. But that's gonna happen in the kingdom of heaven. We're gonna figure out the specifics, the details on how everything gonna be ruled in the kingdom of heaven. Matthew chapter 19, verse 28. And everyone that hath forsaken houses, or brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, right? Meaning that you chose the Lord's side and chose to do what the Lord told you to do versus what they think that you should do and how they feel. Or lands, for my sake, shall receive in 100-fold. See? We're going to receive 100-fold and shall inherit everlasting life. You're going to be immortal. Live forever. You know? You're going to receive 100-fold of those things that you gave up. Yeah, I just hate the precept. What is it again? Give me a second. Oh, let me get this precept. This is Romans chapter 8, verse 16. The Spirit itself bear witness with our spirit that we are the children of the Most High. And if children, then heirs, heirs of the Most High, and joint heirs with Yahushua. Right, we're going to be joint heir, a joint ruler in the kingdom of heaven with whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. If so be that we suffer with him, that we may be also glorified together. We got to suffer with the Lord. The Lord is here in spirit. The things that he did and had to suffer, we suffered back then because we were them same prophets. And how you know you're a prophet? You teaching the word. Now, how do you know if you're a false prophet or not? You're not going to know until the deliverance. You know, but yeah, the suffering is whatnot that the Lord went through, we're going through. We went through it back then. Going through it now, today. Verse 18, for I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. Right, what we're going through is not worthy to be compared to what we shall receive. And I'm only going to name off a few things that from the scriptures. You're going to have thousands of women, infinite amount of women. This is forever. You're going to be able to live forever. You're never going to die, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, starting at verse 39. You're never going to get sick. You're never going to have a need or a want for anything. You're going to have slaves in the kingdom of heaven. And that's going to be regulated. You have spiritual power. The same power that the Lord had to do miracles. And he said, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you shall be able to move mountains. And the scriptures even say the Lord did so much that you couldn't even put it in the book. And we're going to do way much more on this side before heaven is established than he did in his time. You can't compare that to what we're going through right now today. We had this power in the ancient world. But it's the Lord program. The Lord made it to where we went off and started to sin. What man in his right mind would want to lose the power that Goku them had? But want to lose the power that Superman got. Flying, everything. All that's in the Bible. Shooting laser beams from your eyes. All of that is in the Bible. Having extreme strength. He said if you think to move a mountain, you're going to move. If you think to move Mount Everest, picture that. You see how big Mount Everest is? Go look it up. Look how big the Sirius Tower is. If we think it's gonna move to wherever we want it to move. If we want it to crumble, it's gonna crumble. If we want it to catch on fire, it's gonna catch on fire. If we want to kill somebody and bring them back to life, that's the power we gonna have in the kingdom of heaven, man. That's the power we gonna have before the kingdom of heaven. But you gotta be of his elect. You gotta be of the chosen. You gotta suffer on this side. You gotta suffer right now until it's given to you. And it's coming, because we at the door. The Battle of Armageddon already took place. It's just not as hot as it's supposed to be yet. The end all be all, the Battle of Armageddon is thermonuclear missiles. We still waiting on the RFID microchip to be pushed, the MOTB, according to Revelations chapter 13, verse 15. Romans 8:18. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. You got brothers that's going to be killed on this side. It's not worthy to be compared to what you shall receive. You got brothers that might get tortured on this side. It's not worthy to be compared. John was locked in prison until his death. You got brothers that's already locked up right now. You got brothers that's going to be locked in prisons or concentration camps in harshest conditions. But it's not worthy to be compared. You're going to have brothers that's going to be in the bush. You see this forest-looking environment? You're going to have brothers that's going to have to live there and depend on the Lord for food. Depend on the Lord to protect them from the lions, tigers, and bears and the newly created creatures. But they're still not worthy to be compared to what you shall receive from the Lord for doing his will. This is the thing on the Puerto Ricans. I forgot about you, Ephraim. Ephraim is the head of the northern kingdom. Judah is the head of the southern kingdom. The southern kingdom consists of Judah, Benjamin, Levi. The so-called African-American man, the so-called Jamaican man, and the so-called Haitian man. Ephraim, being the Puerto Ricans, is the head of the rest of the tribes. That's the whole South and Central America. All them cities and states and whatnot within there, Panama, Guatemala, Zebulon, all that is who they're the head of, man. But Judah is the top tribe out of all of them, ultimately, because the Lord comes from Judah. The angels are Judah. Yahweh himself, who the world even calls God, is Judah. Bear with me. This is from Google.com. The Puerto Rican, I put the Puerto Rican died mining silver during slavery. It says millions of indigenous people and enslaved Africans died in the horrific conditions of the Potassi, Bolivia silver mines. a colonial era operation in South America. The mines, known as the mountain that eats men, use forced labor to produce immense wealth for Spain through deadly, unventilated, and mercury-poisoned conditions, leading to an estimated 8 million deaths over centuries. And you crackers got to pay for that. We don't want to hear shit. You crackers got to pay for that. You white people got to pay for that. Yeah? Yeah, because the Spanish were a mix of Edomite white people and so-called Puerto Ricans. You know, and there's bits and pieces of other tribes that look like them. But for a fact, them white people were them Spaniards. It says, key tales on mining facilities, fatalities in Potosi, Bolivia. Bolivia, off the top of my dome, Bolivia is in South America. I'm not mistaken. If it's in South America, it's Asher and Naphtali down there. So that's Asher. Asherites was involved in that. Well, I only heard of the Puerto Ricans, but the Bolivians are Asherites. So, you know, 9 times out of 10, the Bolivians took part in it also. They just probably was being called Puerto Ricans because our people be mating with each other and they be looking like each other, you know. But that's a story for another day. But this is key details on mining fatalities of Potosi, Bolivia. Mass, and I had to look up this place anyway. I never really went through this information like that. That's why the work, you always got something to do. This is a lifelong thing. A life walk. Sometimes you're running, sometimes you're walking. Sometimes you're doing certain things at a slow pace. Sometimes you're doing certain things at a fast pace. That's how this truth goes. But this is your life now for you that's coming into the truth. You have to know this history. There's a reason why they don't want us to know this history. You know where you came from, you know where you're going. Point blank, period. It says mass mortality. Historians estimate that up to 8 million indigenous and African slaves died in the Potosi silver mines between 1545 and the 1800s. Come on, say it. It says deadly conditions. The mines were filled with high temperatures, rock dust causing pneumonia, and toxic mercury vapors used for refining, causing severe illness and death. But this one, the one I was looking up, by the way. I was looking for one where it was in the ocean. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna see if I can find it before I get to this next topic. Unless this is the place. No, well, I'll figure it out. It says deadly conditions. The mines were filled with high temperatures, rock dust causing pneumonia, and toxic mercury vapors used for refining, causing severe illness and death. The mountain that eats men, Potosi Cerro Rico Mountain, became infamous for its fatal environment where miners often died from lung disease like silicosis. Labor force. While indigenous people were the primary labor force through the Mita system, African slaves were also brought to the region to work under the Spanish colonial system. Right. I gotta figure out where this place is. While the Curie mentions a Puerto Rican, the history records significantly highlight that while Africans were brought to Puerto Rico for labor, the vast majority of slave deaths in the silver mines occurred in the South American mines of Potosi, Bolivia. which were the center of the Spanish silver industry. Okay. Yeah, man, so let me see. Yep, so this was the Asherites took part in this. This is Asher. And then they had African slaves, which might have been Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, a mix, you know. Okay, give me a second. That's still good information. Dang, they're not bringing it up at all. But I got some slavery, history on slavery for the so-called Puerto Ricans. This is slavery in Puerto Rico, 1493 to 1873. Right, the Puerto Ricans were enslaved before the Judites. Primarily involved the brutal forced labor of indigenous Tainos in gold mines and on encomiendas, followed by the systematic large-scale enslavement of Africans on sugarcane, coffee, and tobacco plantations. It was a central economic pillar, shifting from agricultural production to military fortification labor. Indigenous slavery. Encomienda repartimiento. Upon colonization in 1493, the Spanish forced the Taino population into harsh labor in gold mines and farms. The repartimiento system was used to allocate native workers to Spanish settlers for labor, which, despite regulations, resulted in high mortality rates. African chattel slavery. As the Taino population dwindled, African slavery became the backbone of this economy. Enslaved people were brought from West and Central Africa to work on sugar, coffee, and tobacco plantations. It says plantation slavery. The 19th century sugar boom led to intense, brutal labor conditions, often involved excessive work in the sun. It says urban domestic slavery. Some enslaved individuals served in urban settings, performing household duties, serving as artisans, and engaging in specialized labor in cities like San Juan.